The fog rolled in thicker than anything they had ever seen, swallowing the twisting dirt road ahead of the car like a living, breathing entity. Emma gripped the steering wheel tighter, squinting through the mist, her heart thudding with a mixture of excitement and unease. "Are you sure this is the right way?" she asked, her voice wavering slightly despite the grin she forced onto her face. Jason, sitting in the passenger seat, leaned forward, peering through the glass. "Yeah, the GPS says we're close. Just maybe slow down a little." His tone carried that familiar edge of caution he always wore, the one that made Emma both annoyed and secretly grateful. Behind them, Liam and Maya whispered and laughed nervously. Liam had a daredevil kind of energy, always needing to show he wasn't scared of anything. Maya, in contrast, seemed tense, her eyes flicking constantly to the fog beyond the car. "Something doesn't feel right," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. When the clearing finally appeared, the forest opening like a shadowy maw, Emma exhaled sharply. Towering pines stretched impossibly high, their trunks twisted and blackened, the ground beneath littered with thick moss and fallen needles. The fog clung to everything, dampening sound and light. It was as if the world had been reduced to gray-green and shadow. They parked the car and stepped out. The air was thick and cold, smelling of wet earth and something coppery that Emma couldn't quite place. Something in her stomach twisted uncomfortably. The forest felt alive, eyes hidden among the trees. Liam immediately bolted toward the nearest trail, waving a flashlight. "Come on, let's see what this place is hiding." He laughed, though the laugh sounded hollow against the oppressive silence of the forest. Emma grabbed his arm. "Wait, slow down. We don't even know where we are." Liam smirked but held back. "Relax, it's just a few trees. You're letting the fog get to you." Maya stepped closer to Emma, gripping her sleeve. "No, it's not that. Something's watching. I can feel it." Emma frowned, brushing it off. "It's just the forest. She stopped mid-sentence when her foot caught on something soft. She looked down, a deep claw mark carved into the mossy earth, dark and glistening. She looked up and noticed similar marks etched into the trunks nearby, the bark strangely wet, almost shiny. A drop of dark liquid fell from one of the carvings onto her hand. She recoiled, staring at it. "Is that blood?" Jason muttered, his voice low. Liam knelt, smearing a finger over the sap-like substance. Doesn't look real." He pressed it harder, but a streak of deep red appeared on his skin, warm and sticky. He jerked back with a sharp hiss. "Okay, that's not normal." Maya's face went pale. "I told you? Something's wrong here. We shouldn't be here." Emma's excitement turned into tension, but she forced a laugh. "It's fine. It's just sap, probably mixed with some old animal blood or something." She rubbed her hands, trying to convince herself. The group set up their tents near a small clearing. The fog thickened as night fell, wrapping around them like a heavy, suffocating blanket. Shadows flitted just beyond the edge of the flashlight beams. The forest was alive with soft whispers, subtle but unmistakable, almost like faint voices calling their names. Liam scoffed. "It's just the wind. You guys really need to lighten up." Maya froze. "It's not the wind." Before anyone could respond, a shape moved among the trees. It was brief as shadow, pale and impossibly tall. It didn't run. It glided, almost hovering above the ground. The flashlight beam swung toward it, but the figure vanished into the mist. Jason's voice trembled, though he tried to mask it. "Okay, that was weird." Emma swallowed hard, scanning the fog-covered tree line. "Probably just a deer. Or something." She didn't sound convincing, not even to herself. Then they heard it, a guttural growl, low and uneven, coming from deeper in the forest. It was unlike any animal sound they had ever heard. Liam froze mid-step, his bravado evaporating. The hairs on Maya's arms stood on end, and she clutched Emma's hand. Suddenly, from the mist, a figure emerged. Tall, slender, wrapped in a dark coat that seemed to absorb the faint light. Her eyes were piercing, unnaturally sharp. "You shouldn't be here," the woman said. Her voice was soft, yet it carried through the trees like a warning. Who are you?" Jason asked cautiously. The woman, Sophia, tilted her head. "This forest, it remembers. It feeds. Leave while you still can." Emma stepped forward, trying to be rational. "We're just camping. We're not hurting anything." Sophia's gaze swept over the group, sharp and unsettling. "It doesn't care about your excuses. It only cares about hunger, fear, blood." She vanished into the fog before they could respond, leaving a lingering coldness in the air. The group exchanged tense glances. Liam laughed nervously, but it came out strained. "Okay, that was weird. Definitely weird. But hey, let's not freak out yet." Maya didn't respond. Her eyes were locked on a tree branch nearby where something hung. Emma followed her gaze and saw the half-eaten remains of a small animal, blood dripping fresh onto the mossy floor. Its fur was matted with dark red, the body twisted unnaturally. Emma felt bile rise in her throat. This isn't normal," Maya whispered. Jason swallowed hard, trying to keep a steady voice. We should just go back to camp. Light a fire, maybe we'll feel safer." They gathered around a small fire, trying to ignore the soft, almost imperceptible whispering that drifted through the trees. Every crack of a branch, every rustle of leaves seemed amplified, echoing as if the forest itself was listening. Night deepened, and the fog thickened even more. Shadows stretched and twisted, forming shapes just out of clear sight. Liam tried to joke to keep spirits up, but his voice shook, betraying his fear. Emma stared into the fire, heart pounding. The claw marks on the trees, the fresh blood, the whispers. All of it combined into a single suffocating thought. This forest was alive. And it was hungry. No one spoke for a long while. Even the fire seemed to dim under the weight of the fog, the whispers growing louder, threading into their minds, calling their names, mocking their presence. The night was far from over, and the forest had only begun to reveal its true hunger. Dawn had barely touched the forest when Jason and Liam decided to hike to the nearby stream, hoping to find a path out or at least clear their heads. The fog still clung to the ground like a living thing, curling around their boots with each step. Birds remained silent. Even the wind seemed hesitant to disturb the oppressive quiet. This place, it feels different in the light, Jason muttered, trying to convince himself that visibility would make things safer. Liam laughed nervously. "Yeah, safer? Sure. Nothing creepy about being alone in a forest where the trees look like they're watching you." The trail wound deeper, the trees closing in around them. The mossy ground was slick, but more alarming were the tracks they began to notice, footprints that didn't match either of them. Too deep, too spaced apart, as if whatever made them was much heavier and moving inhumanly fast. Jason crouched, examining them. These aren't ours. Liam whistled, trying to mask the tension in his voice. Probably an animal, a bear or something. Jason didn't look convinced. No animal walks like this. Look at the stride, it's wrong. They pressed on, the fog thickening with each step. A faint whisper skittered along the underbrush, almost imperceptible. Liam froze, ears straining. The sound grew louder, a low, gurgling voice that seemed to echo his own name. Then he was gone. Jason spun around, heart hammering. "Liam?" Only the fog answered. A torn sleeve snagged on a thorn bush swayed in the breeze. Dark blood seeped from the fabric, staining the moss. Jason stumbled backward, stomach lurching. "Oh my God, Liam!" Panic surged through him. He ran back toward where they had camped, adrenaline driving his limbs, until he stumbled across Emma, Maya, and Sophia, who had appeared again like a phantom. Sophia's eyes were sharp, her voice cold. He walked too far. The forest doesn't let him go. Maya's hands were shaking. "He's gone? He can't just vanish." "Not just vanish," Sophia corrected. "Taken. The forest feeds on the living, one piece at a time. Fear brings it closer. Blood attracts it faster." Emma's stomach nodded. "Taken? How? What are you saying?" Sophia stepped closer, her gaze sweeping the trees. "This isn't just a forest. It's a predator. Everything in here, the fog, the shadows, the trees themselves, they hunt. And they remember." Emma felt her skin crawl. Something shifted in the underbrush, a rustle accompanied by a wet tearing sound. She stepped back, her flashlight catching a glimpse of something horrific. A small animal, but mutilated beyond recognition, its limbs bent at impossible angles, deep red blood pooling beneath it. Maya gagged. "Stay together," Jason said, voice firm but trembling. "We're not letting it separate us." They pressed on, stumbling upon a grove unlike anything they had seen before. The trees here were twisted, bark stretched into grotesque faces frozen in silent screams. Some had gaping mouths, hollow eyes, and blackened veins that pulsed slowly, like a heart beating in pain. The air smelled metallic and heavy. Emma's fingers grazed one tree's bark, and it felt warm, almost like skin. She recoiled as she realized it pulsed beneath her fingertips. The whispers became voices, low and guttural. Liam's voice echoed faintly among them, distorted and ragged, calling for help in a soundless scream. Emma's heart lurched, and she covered her ears. But the sound was inside her head now, mingling with the rustle of leaves and the snapping of twigs under invisible feet. Blood dripped from the trees, pooling at their bases in thick, dark rivulets. Emma tried to step over it, but her boot sank slightly into the sticky mass. It's alive," she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. Maya whimpered, pointing. "Look over there." Jason followed her gaze and saw the shadowy form of Liam, standing a few feet away, then unnaturally, his body twisted. Blood ran down his chest, his sleeve shredded. When Jason called his name, Liam's head snapped toward him, eyes wide. Blink unseeing, but a wide, twisted grin spread across his face. Then he vanished into the fog, leaving only the sound of tearing flesh and the echo of a scream that never truly ended. Emma felt bile rise. We have to get out, now." Sophia shook her head. "You can't just run. The forest bends. It's not linear. Paths loop, directions twist. Even the ground itself conspires to trap you." Their fear escalated into desperation as they tried to retrace their steps. Every direction looked the same, identical trees rising like silent sentinels. Compass needles spun wildly and phones displayed static. Emma felt the air grow heavier, suffocating. A whisper crept into her ear, soft and chilling. "We're hungry. We're always hungry." The forest wasn't just watching. It was moving, shifting. Branches curled around their ankles. Thick vines tugged at their clothes, and shadows darted between trees, too fast to track. The sound of tearing, like skin ripping, followed them wherever they went. Emma's hands were scratched raw. Blood welled up from deep gashes left by unseen claws. Maya clutched her arm, tremors shaking through her. They stumbled deeper into the grove of twisted mirror trees. Faces in the bark contorted further, mouths opening and closing silently, as if screaming for release. A deep red sap began dripping like rain, landing on Emma's face and soaking her hair. The smell of iron filled her nose, making her stomach churn out suddenly. A shadow lunged. Emma ducked just in time, but it left deep scratches across Jason's shoulder, slicing through skin to muscle. He screamed, collapsing to his knees, clutching the wound. Maya screamed too, nearly falling as something unseen brushed past her, pulling at her hair, leaving streaks of blood. Sophia shouted over the chaos, "Follow me. I can get you to shelter." The forest itself seemed to resist. Branches thickened, roots rose from the ground to trip them. Whispers turned into shrieks, voices overlapping Liam, and countless others, distorted and pained. Emma could see faint, writhing silhouettes trapped among the trees, their bodies twisted impossibly, faces frozen in silent agony. She stumbled, nearly falling into a pool of the thick red sap. She looked up and realized the forest was alive in more ways than one. Every tree seemed to pulse. Shadows writhed between trunks, and the fog moved as if with intent. Panic surged through her chest. "We can't stop?" She screamed, grabbing Jason and Maya's hands. "Keep moving." The three of them pushed forward, desperate, hearts pounding. The whispers, the blood, the shadows, they all followed, closing in. Sophia's figure flickered in the fog ahead, a grim beacon. Emma had no choice but to trust her, despite the fear clawing at every part of her mind. The forest was no longer just a place. It was a predator, alive with hunger, and it had already tasted their blood. They stumbled through the thickening fog, breaths ragged, hearts hammering in their chests. Blood smeared their arms and clothes from the scratches the forest had left behind, and Emma could feel the sticky sap clinging to her skin like a second layer. Every step seemed to echo unnaturally, the whispers now overlapping into a cacophony of screams, cries, and distorted laughter. Sophia moved ahead with unnerving purpose, branches snapping underfoot, leading them toward what she claimed was a cabin, a place of temporary refuge. The three followed, trusting her despite the gnawing doubt that perhaps the forest had already trapped them in its cruel game. The cabin appeared, suddenly, as if it had grown out of the forest itself. Its walls were blackened and splintered, the roof sagging under an impossible weight. Emma hesitated at the doorway, sensing something terrible inside. A foul metallic odor wafted out, thick with decay and coppery blood. Jason stepped forward, ignoring his bleeding shoulder. "We have no choice. We need shelter." Inside, the horror intensified. Journals and scraps of paper were scattered across the floor, soaked in dark, dried blood. The walls bore deep claw marks, twisted into shapes that resembled faces frozen in agony. Emma gagged at the stench, trying to ignore the shrieks that seemed to echo from the very walls. Sophia's eyes narrowed. The forest leaves traces of its previous meals, people it has consumed. This is what happens when it is hungry too long. A low growl emanated from the shadows in the corner. Emma swung her flashlight. The beam revealed a grotesque humanoid form, eyes black pits, teeth jagged and dripping, limbs bent unnaturally. It lurched forward, and Sophia shouted, pushing the group back toward the center of the room. Blood splattered the walls as claws raked across the wooden floor. Jason fought to pull Emma and Maya away from the advancing creature, but it was relentless. Emma stumbled, barely dodging a swipe that left deep gashes across her leg, crimson flowing freely. Maya screamed as something brushed her shoulder, tearing her jacket and skin. Leaving raw scratches, Sophia fought with a desperation that was almost inhuman, driving the creature back with a long branch she wielded like a spear. But it wasn't alone. Shadows began to coalesce along the walls, growing into grotesque forms, all writhing, all reaching with skeletal, clawed hands. One of them lunged at Sophia, slashing her arm to the bone. She screamed, her blood spraying across the cabin floor, dark and thick. Emma tried to grab Sophia's arm. "We have to get out." Sophia, clutching her bleeding side, shook her head. Go now." "The forest, it doesn't take everyone, only what it needs. Run while you still can." Jason lifted Emma, supporting her as they dashed toward the doorway, Maya close behind. The forest waited beyond the threshold, silent for a moment, almost patient. Then the fog shifted violently, twisting and reaching like tendrils, clawing at their skin, pulling at their clothes, leaving deep, bloody scratches. Branches lashed at their faces, cutting lines across their cheeks. Emma's hair was matted with blood and sap, her vision blurred. Every step felt like wading through thick mud, but adrenaline pushed them onward. Behind them, Sophia's screams echoed, cut off abruptly, replaced by guttural growls that seemed to consume the night. They burst out into the clearing, lungs burning, adrenaline screaming through their veins. The fog seemed to recede just enough to reveal the twisted silhouettes of their missing friends trapped among the tree's limbs' mangled form. Faces pressed into the bark of the mirror trees, blood oozing from deep claw marks in their bodies. They reached toward Emma, Jason, and Maya, twisted mouths opening in silent screams. No, we can't." Maya sobbed, her hands pressed to her mouth. Emma pressed forward, refusing to look back. The forest seemed almost satisfied that it had tasted its fill, at least temporarily, and allowed them a narrow path toward the road. Their legs were raw from scratches, blood staining their clothes, and every nerve in their body screamed in protest. As they reached the edge of the clearing, dawn began to break, weak and gray. The sun struggled to pierce the fog, casting long skeletal shadows across the forest floor. Emma, Jason, and Maya stumbled onto the dirt road, collapsing in exhaustion, shaking uncontrollably. The whispers had not stopped completely. They lingered faintly, insidious, threading into their thoughts. Jason looked back over his shoulder, and Emma followed. The silhouettes of their friends and countless other victims writhed among the trees, bloodied and broken, reaching silently for them. Emma's stomach turned violently, bile rising as she realized the forest's hunger was far from sated. Maya shuddered violently. It's still there, watching. Sophia's words returned to Emma, echoing in her mind. The forest takes only what it needs. She understood now. Every scream, every claw mark, every drop of blood had fed it, strengthened it, made it more alive, more hungry. The forest would wait. It would remember. And it would hunt again. The three continued down the road, stepping carefully over fallen branches, the mist curling around their ankles like cold, wet fingers. Their hands were raw, bodies aching from scratches and bites, clothes soaked in blood, some their own, some not. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves in the distance made them jump. Shadows flitted at the edges of their vision, and though the fog thinned slightly as the sun rose higher, the whispers never fully left. They lingered in the corners of Emma's mind, promising that the forest's hunger was eternal. Emma's breath came in ragged gasps. We made it out," she whispered, voice trembling, though part of her knew the truth. The forest had let them go this time. It had been patient, but its hunger was patient too, waiting, watching. Behind them, the trees swayed ever so slightly, as if shrugging off the memory of the night's feast. Blood glistened on bark and moss where the shadows had touched. Somewhere in the distance, a guttural growl reverberated through the forest. Emma, Jason, and Maya didn't stop running. Not until the trees were behind them, not until the road stretched endlessly ahead, and even then, they couldn't shake the feeling that blood among the pines had already marked them. The forest had fed tonight, but it would feed again.
Please like and subscribe channel Fear Frequency for more horror stories. Thank you.